So, how in the world does a major international airline go about buying a whole new fleet of airplanes? I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for a single plane. Well, the answer usually isn't just a straightforward bank loan. More often than you'd think, it's a very specific and kind of brilliant financial structure that's rooted deep in Japanese tax and aviation law. Today, we're going to deconstruct one of the most important tools in aviation finance, the JOLCO. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the absolute basics, what a JOLCO even is. Then, we'll dig into the one legal rule that makes this whole thing necessary in the first place. After that, we'll look at the tax incentives that get investors excited, how the money moves across borders, and of course, how the whole deal wraps up. Finally, we'll put all the pieces together to see why it works so well. Okay, so first things first. What exactly are we talking about here? Let's meet the key players and get a feel for the basic setup. This right here, this is the central problem that the JOLCO was designed to solve. Airlines need shiny new planes to stay competitive, but buying them outright just incinerates cash. So the JOLCO offers a path to get those planes flying, often with nearly 100% financing, which is a huge deal. To make this whole thing happen, you really need four specific groups to come to the table. First, you've got the airline, the one that's actually going to use the plane. They're the lessee. Then you have a special Japanese company, the lessor, which is set up just for this one deal. And to fund it, you have Japanese investors putting in some of the cash and banks providing the rest as debt. Every single one of these players has a very clear reason for being there. Now, this slide points out a really critical distinction. You might hear about a JOL, and then there's the JOLCO. The CO is the magic ingredient. It stands for call option. With a regular JOL, the airline just leases the plane and gives it back at the end. Simple. But with a JOLCO, the airline gets the option, not the obligation, but the right to buy the plane at a price they agreed on years earlier. This gives them control and certainty over their fleet's future. So you might be thinking, okay, that's a lot of moving parts. Why go through all this trouble? Well, it turns out this entire complex structure is built on the foundation of one single, unavoidable rule in Japanese law. And there it is. This one sentence is the linchpin for the entire JOLCO market. It's simple. To register a commercial aircraft in Japan, the legal owner has to be Japanese. A foreign airline, say from the US or Europe, simply cannot own a Japanese-registered plane directly. This legal roadblock is what creates the entire opportunity. So how do you solve that problem? You create what's called a special purpose company, or an SPC. It's basically a shell company set up in Japan for one and only one reason, to hold the legal title to the aircraft. This satisfies the registration rule. So even though the plane is being flown daily by a foreign airline, on paper, its official owner is this Japanese SPC. Okay, so the law explains why the SPC has to exist. But why would any Japanese investor want to put their hard-earned money into it? Well, this is where the real genius of the structure kicks in. It all comes down to the tax benefits. This chart really shows the economic engine at the heart of the JLCO. See, the SPC is getting real cash every month from the airline's lease payments. That's real income. But for tax purposes, Japanese law lets the SPC deduct a huge amount for the plane's depreciation, especially in the first few years. This depreciation is so massive, it wipes out the real income and actually creates a big loss on paper. So here's the breakdown of how that tax engine works. An aircraft's value can be written down over about 8 to 12 years, and the method used allows for really big deductions up front. Now, here's the clever part. These paper losses are passed through directly to the Japanese investors. They can then use these losses to cancel out real profits from their main businesses, which in turn lowers their overall tax bill. It's essentially a way for them to defer taxes, and that's the big incentive for them to invest. Right, now let's follow the money. We have an airline outside Japan that needs to pay the investors and the bank inside Japan. How do those lease payments get across the border efficiently without a huge chunk getting eaten up by taxes along the way? The flow is incredibly precise. The non-Japanese airline makes its regular lease payment to the Japanese SPC. But crucially, that payment gets classified as income from international aircraft operation. That special classification is the ticket because it allows the payment to be governed by a very specific rule in the tax treaty between Japan and the airline's home country. And this number right here, 0%, is what makes the whole deal commercially attractive. Normally, a cross-border payment like this could get hit with a Japanese withholding tax of over 20%. But because of Article 8 of the tax treaty, which covers shipping and air transport, that tax is reduced all the way down to zero. So what does that 0% tax mean in practice? It means real savings for the airline. By avoiding that 20+% tax hit on every single payment, the total cost of financing the aircraft ends up being about 2 to 4% cheaper than other options. On an asset worth hundreds of millions of dollars, that is a massive amount of savings. Okay, so the lease runs its course, usually for 8 to 12 years. The plane's been flying, payments have been made. How does this whole thing wrap up for everyone? And we're back to that all-important call option. With a JOLCO, what almost always happens is the airline exercises its option to buy the plane. It gives them total control over a critical part of their fleet. Now, when the SPC sells the plane to the airline, it has to pay Japanese corporate tax on the profit, which is the difference between the sale price and the plane's book value, which by now has been depreciated down to almost nothing. All right, let's step back and pull all of these different threads together. We've seen the legal part, the tax part, and the commercial part. Now let's see why they fit together so perfectly. You know, the best way to think about a JOLCO is like a three-legged stool. Seriously, the first leg is legal. Japanese law creates the need for the structure to exist at all. The second leg is tax. The depreciation rules create the incentive for Japanese investors to provide the equity. And that third leg is commercial. The tax treaty provides the cost savings that make it all worthwhile for the airline. Now here's the point. If you try to kick out any one of those legs, the entire stool collapses. It's a perfectly balanced system. So in the end, what we're looking at is this beautifully symbiotic structure. It's born from a legal necessity, powered by tax ingenuity, and it results in a tangible commercial benefit. The airline gets cheaper financing, the Japanese investors get to defer taxes, and it all works because of this unique intersection of different rules and regulations. The JOLCO is just a fantastic example of how very specific national laws can create these highly specialized tools that have a huge impact on global industries. It's a powerful reminder that behind the everyday things we see, like the planes we fly in, there's often this incredibly intricate world of finance making it all happen. It really makes you wonder what other invisible engines like this are out there, quietly shaping our world.